The term Nepo baby, or short for nepotism baby, is a slang used to describe the child of a famous or influential person, someone who has an advantage in their career because of their family connections, not just talent or hard work. And the National Hockey League has seen many second-generation players attempt to follow in the footsteps of their famous relatives. In hockey, these children grow up under the shadow of legendary family names and face enormous expectation, battling the pressure of a famous name, media hype, and the ever-present comparisons to their father's greatness. Some shine under this immense pressure, however some never get a fair shot at all. This is the story of the NHL's Nepo babies who couldn't match the legacy. From Ty Gretzky's quiet exit from hockey to Brett Lindros' tragic fall, we will explore the careers of players who tried but struggled to live up to the family name. These are the failed Nepo babies of the NHL. Ty Gretzky was born in 1990 as the eldest son of Wayne Gretzky, considered the greatest hockey player of all time. Growing up as the son of the Great One meant Ty was immersed in hockey from a young age, but it also meant living with impossible expectations. As a child, he loved hockey and bonded with his father over the game. Wayne even said, "He was my hockey guy, he loves hockey." But the moment Ty laced up his skates, the comparisons and pressures were intense. Spectators and even other kids would taunt him, "You'll never be as good as your dad." Kids told him from a young age. In his mid-teens, Ty attended the prestigious Shattuck Street Mary's Prep School, a well-known hockey academy that produced NHL stars. He played on a lower-tier team there and managed 4 goals and 6 assists over 29 games in one season. On the ice, he was a solid player, but not a prodigy, and his performances were often scrutinized solely because of his last name. In an effort to reduce the spotlight, Ty even removed Gretzky from his jersey to try and blend in. "Somehow people in the stands would just find out who I was," he recalled, "and yell, 'You'll never be as good as your dad' in hockey." The relentless comparisons began to wear him. By 2007, at just 17, Ty decided not to pursue college hockey or major junior hockey, feeling that it wasn't just about playing hockey anymore. It became about living up to a legacy I didn't ask for. Although Ty did not chase an NHL career, he found a different way to stay connected to the sport and his family's legacy. In 2014, he partnered with his father to co-found the Gretzky Hockey School, a series of camps for young players. Through his tenure, Ty channeled his love for hockey into coaching and development, aiming to create a fun environment where young players can develop their skills without the burden of comparison. And I quote, "Ty was never able to follow his father's hockey achievements. Gretzky retired with 2,857 NHL points and a long list of records and awards. By contrast, Ty never played beyond the amateur level, a conscious choice he made under the weight of unrealistic expectations. While Wayne became a Hall of Famer and a household name, Ty's impact on the sport has been through coaching youth and promoting the game, rather than on on-ice performance. His story is just one of many of being a child of a legend, which can be a curse and a blessing. The road to hockey greatness isn't always paved by a last name alone. For some, like Ty Gretzky, the weight of a legendary surname can feel overwhelming, while for others, it becomes a challenge to prove they belong. That was exactly the case for Leon Messier, the son of Mark Messier, a Hall of Fame forward who captained teams to 6 Stanley Cup championships and is regarded as one of the greatest leaders in hockey history. Born in 1987, Leon grew up during the latter part of his father's illustrious career and was surrounded by elite hockey environments from childhood. Mark Messier's legendary status, nicknamed the Moose for his imposing play, casted a long shadow over Leon's aspirations. Like his father, Leon picked up hockey as a boy and played as a defenseman, but the road to hockey greatness proved much tougher for him. As a teenager, Leon played junior hockey in both Canada and the United States. He spent some time in junior B leagues in Ontario and eventually landed with the Lincoln Stars of the USHL, a top US junior league, for the 2007-2008 season. With Lincoln, Leon recorded 5 goals and 12 assists in 46 games, showing some flashes of ability as a 6'1" blue liner. Though he went undrafted by NHL teams, his name and pedigree earned him an invitation to the New York Rangers prospect camp in 2008. Fittingly, the Rangers were one of Mark Messier's former teams. Still, making the leap to the NHL is a daunting challenge, and for Leon, the next step was minor leagues. In 2008 to 2009, Leon turned pro in North American minor circuits. He had a brief stint with the Charlotte Checkers of the ECHL, just 1 game before signing with the New Mexico Scorpions of the Central Hockey League. In New Mexico, he appeared in 28 games and notched 7 points, but struggled to stand out. By February 2009, Leon was acquired by South Carolina Stingrays in the ECHL, a team which he would achieve a small measure of success. He joined the Stingrays in time for their playoff push, and notably was a part of the squad squad that went on to win the ECHL's Kelly Cup championship that spring. Still, despite these efforts, Leon never climbed higher in professional hockey. After a couple of seasons bouncing around the low minors, he retired as a player without any NHL games to his name. Following his brief playing career, Leon transitioned into coaching and skill development, carving out a different role in the sport. He settled in the Washington DC area and became involved with youth hockey programs. As of the mid-2010s, Leon served as a coach and director of player development for junior teams, such as Washington Little Caps, and runs the Leon Messier hockey training school in Virginia. The Messier name may have opened some doors, such as a look from the Rangers, but could not guarantee success on the ice. Unlike his father's celebrated career as a clutch performer and leader, Leon's impact has been behind the scenes as a youth coach. His journey underscores the reality that even with a famous last name, a player must forge their own identity. While Leon Messier's hockey journey ended quietly in the minor leagues, not every hockey family story is one of quiet exits. For Frederick Wah, son of the goaltender Patrick Wah, the path was far more turbulent. Growing up under the fierce competitive shadow of his father, one of the most polarizing figures in NHL history, Frederick faced not only the pressure of expectations, but also heat of controversy. His story is one of a player trying to prove himself in junior hockey, battling discipline issues, and ultimately falling short of the NHL dream. Frederick Wah is one of the two sons of legendary goaltender Patrick Wah, a Hall of Famer who won 4 Stanley Cups and is often cited among the greatest goaltenders in NHL history. Born in 1991, Frederick was raised in a hockey hotbed. He spent part of his childhood in Colorado, while his father starred for the Avalanche, and later in Quebec City, where Patrick Wah became head coach and co-owner of the Quebec Remparts junior team. Unlike his father, a goalie, or even his brother, Jonathan, also a goalie, Frederick charted his own course as a forward. In junior hockey, Frederick played for the Quebec Remparts in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, the very team his father coached. This arrangement drew scrutiny, with some suggesting he made the squad because his father owned the team. And early on, Frederick's contributions were limited. He appeared only in 5 games in 2007 to 2008. However, over 5 seasons with the Remparts, he developed into a reliable two-way center. Frederick's junior hockey career was marked by both notable achievements and notorious incidents. On the positive side, he blossomed offensively. His final seasons in 2010 to 2011, he scored 26 goals, and in 2011 to 2012, he tallied 92 points and was honored the Guy Carbonneau Trophy as the best defensive forward, also earning a spot on the league's first All-Star team. These awards showed that by age 20, he had stepped up out of his father's shadow to some degree and proved himself as a quality junior player. On the negative side, however, Frederick Wah gained a controversial reputation for his temper and aggressive play while in junior. In November 2008, he was involved in an infamous incident. During a timeout in a game, Wah struck an opponent in the face with a high stick. The league, after reviewing video of the shocking act, suspended Frederick for 15 games. The episode came just 8 months after his brother, Jonathan, had been suspended for a violent on-ice fight. More on that a little bit later. Fueling speculations that Patrick Wah's sons were inheriting only his fiery side. Patrick Wah himself was still behind the Remparts bench during these incidents, prompting the criticism about discipline, or lack thereof, on his family-run team. Despite the blemish, Frederick continued to play a key role for Quebec through the 2011-2012 season, after which his junior eligibility was up. Going undrafted by NHL teams, Frederick sought to keep his professional dreams alive by signing an AHL contract. In 2012, he joined the Rochester Americans, the AHL affiliate of the Buffalo Sabres. However, transitioning to the pros proved challenging. As a rookie in 2012 to 2013, Wah recorded 10 points, 8 goals and 2 assists in 64 AHL games. He was re-signed for another year in 2013 to 2014, and he matched his previous goal total of 8 goals and 12 points in 52 games. While he brought energy and a bit of grit, amassing over 120 penalty minutes that season, it became clear that he lacked the elite skills to climb the NHL. Wah did get a taste of international play when he was loaned for the 2013 Spengler Cup in Switzerland, but even those flashes weren't enough to elevate his profile. After 2 AHL seasons and limited interest from NHL organizations, 23-year-old Frederick Wah decided to hang up his skates in 2014. He announced his retirement with plans to return to school and continue his education, an end to a career that had begun under the brightest spotlight in junior hockey. While Frederick Wah's journey was marked by a mix of flashes and fiery incidents, his story was only part of the Wah family's complex legacy in junior hockey. His older brother, Jonathan Wah, followed his father's footsteps as a goaltender, but unlike Frederick, Jonathan's time in the crease wasn't defined by his performance between the pipes. It was defined by a moment of infamy that would make headlines across Canada and would leave a permanent mark on the Wah name. Born in 1989, Jonathan's path was different from his sibling. He chose to become a goaltender just like his father. As a child, he moved with his family from Montreal to Colorado when his father was traded to the Avalanche, and he grew up amid that championship-winning environment. Yet, even as he played hockey, Jonathan harbored a creative passion. He was writing poetry and song lyrics as a teen, influenced by his mother's musical talents at the piano. By age 17, he was standing goal for the Quebec Remparts under his father's coaching, but his heart was already contemplating a future far from the crease. Jonathan Wah's junior hockey is remembered less for stats or any notable achievements, but more for a single notorious incident. On March 22, 2008, during a QMJHL playoff game, Jonathan was involved in a full-scale brawl that became national news. The Remparts were in a heated game against the Chicomuti Saguenayens. I've been trying to pronounce that name for like the past 5 minutes, I just can't. When a massive fight broke out on the ice. Enraged, Jonathan skated the length of the rink to challenge opposing goalie Bobby Nadeau, who clearly did not want to fight. Initially, officials intervened and held Jonathan back, but when they turned away to address other scuffles and charged the opposing goalie again, he tore off Nadeau's mask and pummeled the unwilling goalie with repeated punches, even after Nadeau fell on the ice. As he was escorted off, Jonathan made twin middle finger gestures to the crowd. The ugly scene was captured on video and went viral. The fallout was severe. The QMGHL suspended Jonathan for 7 games for this attack, and also suspended his father and coach, Frederick Wah, for 5 games for failing to control his team, amid speculation that Patrick had even gestured encouragingly during the attack. The incident even led to Quebec's sports minister demanding a report on reducing violence in hockey. In September 2009, Jonathan was charged with assault for the attack. He eventually apologized for showing the middle fingers to the crowd, though he did not apologize for the fighting itself. The assault charge was later settled through Canada's justice system. Whilst I couldn't find the exact court documents, I saw articles state that he received a form of probation. In the midst of the turmoil, Patrick Wah had a frank discussion with his son about his future. Sizing up Jonathan's prospects, Patrick advised him that his future would not be in hockey and that he should think about education. Jonathan, who had always dreamed of a music career, even as he played junior hockey, took this to heart. In 2007, at age 18, he told his father that what he really wanted was to be a musician and songwriter, not a pro athlete. With his father's blessing, Jonathan Wah walked away from the competitive hockey scene and pivoted fully to his artistic passion. From 2009 onward, Jonathan set out to build a name for himself in music. He launched a career as a pop singer and songwriter, a most unlikely turn for a former goalie and the son of a hockey legend. Over the next decade, he released multiple albums and did not look back to a professional hockey career. In later interviews, Patrick Wah expressed pride in Jonathan's courage to pursue his own path in life, noting that as a parent, he supported his son's true passion just as much as he would have supported an NHL dream. While Jonathan Wah's story ended with a sharp exit from the sport and a pivot to music, another name on the list faced a different kind of heartbreak, one that wasn't self-inflicted. Brett Lindros, the younger brother of NHL superstar Eric Lindros, seemed destined for a long and successful career in the league, a top 10 draft pick with a massive contract and sky expectations. Brett's future looked bright, but sometimes things just don't go your way, and no amount of talent can protect a player from the brutal realities of the game, especially when it comes to the devastating impact of concussions. Brett Lindros is the younger brother of Eric Lindros, one of the NHL's marquee stars of the 1990s. Eric's dominance, a Hart Trophy as league MVP in 1995, and a career that eventually earned Hall of Fame induction set a towering benchmark. Born in 1975, Brett grew up in the shadow of his big brother. The Lindros family was highly athletic. Their father played professional football briefly, and as Eric's legend grew in junior and then the NHL, Brett was inspired to pursue the same path. He was a big, powerful built forward, 6'4", just like his brother, and by his late teens, Brett was drawing NHL scout attention in his own right. In junior hockey, Brett played for the Kingston Frontenacs of the Ontario Hockey League. Though he didn't possess Eric's offensive gifts, Brett made his presence felt with a physical, hard-hitting style. He actually suffered multiple concussions in junior, at least 5, according to later reports. But in early 1990s, such injuries were often undiagnosed and did not deter players from continuing. By 1994, Brett was considered a promising power forward prospect, projected to follow Eric into the NHL. The New York Islanders selected him 9th overall in the 1994 NHL draft, making the Lindros brothers both top 10 draft picks. The Islanders immediately touted Brett as a potential franchise cornerstone, eager to inject his size and toughness into a team that had struggled. He was a symbol of what we lacked, some size and some toughness, Islanders GM Don Maloney said at the time. The team was so high on Brett that they signed him to a 5-year, $7.5 million contract before he even played a game. An enormous deal for a 19-year-old rookie in that era. Brett's NHL career began in the lockout-shortened 1994-95 season. When the labor stoppage ended, the Islanders brought the 19-year-old straight to the NHL. In his debut season, Brett appeared in 33 games, recording 1 goal and 3 assists and 100 penalty minutes. He often skated on the second line, using his body to forecheck and fight. Indeed, he dropped the gloves several times. In one fight, against the Pittsburgh Penguins, Brett sustained a concussion that caused him to miss 8 games. At the time, the incident drew little public notice since concussions were poorly understood, and Brett returned to action relatively quickly. Unknown to him, however, those prior head injuries from junior had accumulated. As one account later put it, there was a ticking time bomb inside his head. The following 1995-96 season started optimistically. Brett was still just 20, eager to make a great impact. He began the season well enough, posting 3 points in the first 18 games. But on November 16, 1995, he suffered yet another concussion during a game against the LA Kings. He missed a couple of games, but then returned to the lineup on November 24th, only to sustain another concussion almost immediately in his first game back. This concussion was believed to be the 8th or 9th in his young career, and it proved to be devastating. The symptoms lingered for far longer than before, a sign of post-concussion syndrome. What was scary for me was each time it took longer to resolve. My last concussion before my 20th birthday took 8 or 9 weeks, Brett later revealed. He experienced memory loss and other health issues, even noting episodes of memory lapses on the bench during games. Doctors warned that continuing to play could risk permanent brain injury. Faced with no real choice, Brett announced his retirement from hockey on May 1st, 1996, at the heartbreaking age of just 20. He had only played 51 NHL games total. The Islanders, who had invested so heavily in Brett, initially hesitated at paying out the remainder of the contract. They contended that Brett had not disclosed his concussion history before signing. This led to a legal dispute that dragged on for 2 years. In 1998, the case was settled, and the Islanders agreed to pay Brett full of his $7.5 million contract. By then, Brett had shifted focus to life after hockey. In the early 2000s, he worked on the media side of the sport, hosting segments of the NHLPA and doing TV work that leveraged his name and brief playing experience. However, he eventually stepped away from public hockey roles and entered the world of business. Brett found success in finance. As of later reports, he has worked in Toronto for a hedge fund, AGC Investment Management. There was a bump in the road in 2001 when Brett was involved in a serious snowmobile accident. He was a passenger on a snowmobile that had crashed, and police said that alcohol was a factor. Brett was charged with operating a snow machine without a license as a result of that incident. He recovered from his incident from that episode and hasn't really been seen in the public as much since then. His brother, Brett Lindros, was a generational talent, a Hart Trophy winner who scored 865 points in a career shortened by his own concussion issues. He led the Philadelphia Flyers to a Stanley Cup final and became a Hall of Famer. Brett Lindros, tragically, never got a chance to approach those heights. His NHL stat line, 2 goals and 5 assists in 51 games, barely scratches the surface of what might have been. In a cruel twist, both Lindros brothers saw their careers cut short by concussions, but Eric had almost a decade of stardom before his injuries forced him out. Brett barely had 1 year. The weight of expectation on Brett, as Eric's brother, was immense. Fans and media wondered if he could dominate physically like Eric, and in flashes, he did show dominating physicality, but the cost was high. At 20, instead of being the Islanders franchise player, as envisioned, he was an ex-hockey player trying to pick up the pieces. While Brett Lindros' career was cut tragically by concussions, for others, the weight of a family legacy wasn't just about physical challenges, it was about the impossible task of living up to greatness. And that was the case for Jude Hull, the son of Brett Hull, and the grandson of Bobby Hull, 2 of the most prolific goal scorers in NHL history. But rather than chasing the family scoring legacy, Jude charted his own path, stepping into the crease as a goaltender. His story is a quieter one, an example of hockey lineage that didn't always translate into NHL success. His father, Brett, scored 741 NHL goals, placing him 5th on the all-time list at his retirement, and won 2 Stanley Cups, while his grandfather, Bobby, scored 610 NHL goals, and earned the nickname the Golden Jet for his blazing slapshot and speed. With that kind of lineage, one might expect Jude to be a sharpshooting forward. In an intrigue twist, however, Jude chose the opposite position. He became a goaltender, perhaps to escape direct comparisons to the scoring feats of his elders. Growing up in the 90s and 2000s, Jude was often around the NHL rinks. The Hull name carried enormous prestige, but Jude's interest and talents on the ice developed at his own pace. Jude's hockey career led him to a collegiate level, but not to the bright lights of the NHL. He attended St. Olaf College in Minnesota as a Division III NCAA school, known more for academics and Division III athletes than as a pipeline to pro hockey. As the starting goalie for St. Olaf, Jude played 4 seasons of collegiate hockey from 2014 to 2018. In his senior year, he appeared in 12 games and recorded 3.12 goals against average. His overall college stats were modest. There were no championship runs or All-American honors. Jude's college career was that of a respectable student athlete playing for the love of the game. Upon graduating in 2018, Jude's competitive hockey career effectively came to a close. Unlike many Division I college players, Division III rarely get NHL looks, and indeed, Jude did not advance to any minor pro leagues. Outside of game action, Jude only rarely entered public hockey conversation. One notable moment came in November 2021, when Alexander Ovechkin was poised to tie and surpass Brett Hull on the all-time goal lists. As Ovechkin scored his 741st goal, matching Brett's career total, Jude tweeted 3 thumbs down emojis in disapproval. He was in effect standing up to his dad's legacy, playfully expressing that he wasn't happy to see his father's mark equaled. The tweet went viral, especially in Russia, and Jude joked about the wrath of Ovechkin fans coming down on him. In reply to the online frenzy, he defended his reactions by saying he was just supporting his father, and it's natural to be disappointed when a family record is matched. The lighthearted incident briefly shone spotlight on Jude. Many fans even quipped that they hadn't known that Brett Hull had a son until that tweet. After college, Jude did not pursue a career in hockey. Instead, he entered the ordinary working life. He remains a hockey fan and a supportive fan, known to proudly discuss his father's and grandfather's accomplishments, but he appears content not being in the competitive spotlight. While Jude chose the quiet path of college hockey, far from the NHL spotlight, another player, Blake Coffey, found himself navigating a different set of challenges. As the son of Hall of Fame defenseman Paul Coffey, Blake inherited a name synonymous with offensive brilliance from the blue line. But unlike his father, who revolutionized the position, Blake's journey through junior and college hockey would be a winding one, marked by constant moves and an uphill battle to carve out a place in the game. Paul Coffey won 4 Stanley Cups, mostly with the Edmonton Oilers' 1980s dynasty, tallied 1,531 NHL points, and was a 3-time Norris Trophy winner as the league's best blue liner. Born in 1998, when his father was winding down from his playing career, Blake grew up in Toronto with a Hall of Fame dad who had revolutionized offensive defenseman play. From an early age, Blake was exposed to elite hockey circles in training. In fact, his father took an active role in coaching his son during his youth hockey days. As a 15-year-old, Blake was playing for the Toronto Marlboros minor program, and his father, Paul, was behind the bench as his coach. A situation Blake admitted, it's not easy because you've got a bit of a target on you as the coach's son, especially when that coach is an ex-NHL superstar. Paul himself noted that Blake handled the pressure well, worked hard, and that as a parent coach. That's pretty much all you could ask for. Blake's journey to pro hockey went through junior ranks, but unlike many sons of NHLers, he did not go to the high-profile Canadian Major League route too long. He was drafted by the OHL's Windsor Spitfires, but he never became a mainstay in the OHL. Instead, Blake bounced around through a variety of junior leagues in North America, trying to find the right fit and perhaps keep NCAA eligibility. Between 2014 and 2018, he played in 5 different leagues. He spent time in the Ontario Hockey League, in the British Columbian Hockey League, in the Central Canada Hockey League, and the North American Hockey League. This nomad junior hockey career was somewhat unusual, and suggested that Blake was striving to develop and catch on the eye of scouts, even if it meant moving far from home. He did have some success along the way. For instance, he was part of a minor championship, the OHL Cup, in 2014, and by 2017, he was a useful defenseman in the NAHL, tallying 22 points in a season. However, he did not dominate in a way that would secure an NHL draft selection. Opting for an education and further development, Blake went to college hockey. He enrolled at Hobart College, a Division III NCAA program, in the fall of 2018. At Hobart, Blake Coffey finally found stability and a prominent role. He played 3 seasons of the NCAA Division III hockey, and as a senior in 2021 to 2022, had his best year, scoring 7 goals and 15 assists for 22 points in 28 games. Excellent numbers for a defenseman. He was recognized as a first-team All-Conference player in the New England Hockey Conference, capping off a solid collegiate career. Still, Division III players rarely attract NHL interest, and Blake was no exception. By the time he graduated, the writing on the wall was that his playing games at a high level were likely over. There were no professional contracts awaiting, and Blake Coffey's competitive hockey career quietly concluded with his college graduation. Post-college, Blake appears to have transitioned out of competitive play. He has at times been involved in hockey skill development, unsurprising given his father's hockey school connections. He has kept a relatively low profile in the public hockey sphere, and seems to be going on with his life in his own way. While Paul Coffey's children quietly stepped away from competitive hockey without much fanfare, for others on this list, the pursuit of professional careers burned much brighter, even if the road to the NHL never fully opened. This was the case for Chris Bourke, the son of Boston Bruins legend Ray Bourke. Chris's story is different. He did make it to the NHL, but his true legacy was built in the minor leagues, where he became a superstar in the AHL. Ray Bourke, a Boston Bruins legend and Hall of Fame defenseman who holds the NHL's records for career goals, assists, and points by a defenseman, Ray's storied career included 5 Norris trophies and a memorable Stanley Cup victory in his final game. For Ray's children, the family legacy in New England was massive. Chris, born in 1986, grew up in Boston, during the height of his father's fame. He was often around the Bruins locker room as a kid, and even lifted the Stanley Cup with his dad as a 15-year-old in 2001. With that upbringing, it's no surprise Chris pursued hockey. Unlike his father, a defenseman, Chris chose to be a winger, and though he was relatively small, around 5'8", he possessed skill and hockey IQ that helped him stand out in junior. Chris Bourke's career can be viewed as a tale of two leagues, limited stints in the NHL, but tremendous success in the AHL. He was drafted 33rd overall by the Washington Capitals in 2004, a nod to his talent coming out of junior at the time. After a year at Boston University, Chris turned pro and joined the Capitals AHL affiliate. He soon became a key player for them, and in November 2007, Chris got his first call-up to the NHL and played a handful of games for the Caps, but he was shuttled back and forth and didn't yet stick. He scored his first NHL goal on December 30th, 2008 for Washington, a special moment for the Bourke family. However, the NHL opportunities were sparse, 4 games here and there. In 2009, the Pittsburgh Penguins claimed Chris off of waivers, giving him a brief look. He tallied his first NHL assist in that stint, but a couple of months later, he was waived and returned to the Capitals organization. The reality set in that Chris, while a gifted playmaker, wasn't that good at the NHL level. Back in AHL, however, he was a star. He helped the Caps AHL affiliate to back-to-back Calder championships in 2009 and 2010. In the 2010 Calder Cup playoffs, Chris was dominant. He led the entire league with 27 points and was a playoff MVP. In 2010, at age 24, and with 2 AHL titles, Chris decided to try Europe, signing in the KHL with Atlant Moscow. The Russian adventure was short-lived. Unhappy with his role, he left after a month and quickly switched to HC Luango in Switzerland for the remainder of the season. By 2011, he rejoined the Caps on a 2-way contract. The 2011 to 2012 season became one for the ages in the AHL. Chris once again led the league in scoring with a career-high 93 points in 73 games. He was named to the AHL First All-Star team and proved he was an elite AHL forward. The Caps, facing a long jam of talent, traded Chris to the Boston Bruins in June 2012. The Bruins gave Chris a real shot in the NHL during the 2012-2013 season. He made Boston's roster spot out of training camp, and on February 2nd, 2013, Chris scored his first and only goal as a Boston Bruin. Chris struggled to produce consistently, and once again went down to the AHL midway through the season. Boston did not re-sign him after that year. After that, he embarked on a journeyman chapter, signing in the KHL, then to the Swiss League, and then back to the NHL in 2014 with the New York Rangers, with a 2-way contract, in which he exclusively played for the AHL, leading the team with 66 points and earning yet another AHL All-Star nod. In 2015 fittingly, he returned once again to the Caps organization. That 2015-2016 season, Chris won the AHL scoring title with 80 points and was named the league MVP. He also collected his 3rd Calder Cup championship. By this time, he had firmly established himself as one of the AHL's all-time great talents. As a veteran leader, he continued to produce into his late 30s. In 2018, at age 32, Chris received a special honor. He was named to the United States Olympic team for the 2018 Pyeongchang Winter Olympics. Chris notched 2 assists in 5 Olympic Games. After the Olympics, Chris played 1 more year in the AHL. Then in 2019 to 2020, spent some seasons in Germany's top league, continuing to put up solid numbers in his mid-30s. And by 2022, Chris finally retired. Chris played 51 NHL games across Washington, Pittsburgh, and Boston with 2 goals and 8 points. But in the AHL, however, he accumulated over 800 games, recorded 746 points, and ranked among the league's career scoring leaders. He won 3 Calder Cups and was a 6-time AHL All-Star. However, he was never able to shine at the NHL level. Chris himself acknowledged it. He once noted that he gets it. At 31, he knew he was an AHL lifer and was fine with that. He built an impressive AHL career, one that would eventually land him in the AHL Hall of Fame. He was a fan favorite and a star. Even though he wasn't able to follow his father's footsteps, his father Ray was still immensely proud of him. Not every famous hockey name leads to NHL stardom. For these Nepo babies, the journey was different. Some found their place in the minors, others walked away entirely, but all show that a famous name doesn't guarantee you NHL success. But for each person on this list, they found a way to leave a lasting legacy in their own ways.